Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Foley.
And I'm Commander Cockings, as always.
And we are really excited about today's chat. We have a very awesome special guest star with us, Mr. Andrew Probert. Welcome back to the show, Andrew.
Thank you. Good to be back.
So today's topic is arguably the most iconic starship in cinematic history, the refitted Enterprise NCC 1701, as first seen in Star Trek the Motion Picture back in 1979. One of my absolute favorites. And Samuel is playing with one. Now, it is important for everyone to note that this is just a brief discussion on the design of this amazing ship. We will be doing a full in-depth Trekyards Legends episode about it in the future as part of our Star Trek 50th anniversary lineup next year. So please stay tuned for those episodes, as those are the ones that everyone are going to be dying to see.
Yeah, exactly. There's some great stuff lined up for the 2016 anniversary, but this is just a preliminary look because, come on, guys, you got to get your fix of these famous ships before then. So let's begin. Andrew, how did you first find out you were going to work on redesigning the original Enterprise as seen in the 1966 TV show? Were you involved with Star Trek Phase 2 at all, or were you brought in later after the decision was made to make a motion picture?
Yes.
Okay.
So how did I get on Star Trek the Motion Picture? Okay, well, we have to go back a little bit to lead into this. I was going to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, California. And it was just about the time Star Wars came out. And there were a lot of articles in magazines, pre-release articles about this film featuring the artwork and designs of Ralph McQuarrie. And in one of the articles, it mentioned that he was an LA-based artist. And I was in love with this guy's work and wanted to meet him. And I've never geeked out like this before, but I looked him up in the phone book, and there he was. And I called him, and then feeling even geekier, I didn't know quite what to say. And darn if he doesn't pick up the phone. Hello. I'm calling for Ralph McQuarrie. This is he. I says, hi, I'm Andrew Probert, and I would like to interview you for my school's newspaper. He is like, great. What school? I said, Art Center. He says, yeah, I went there for a little bit. Come on over.
Cool.
So I went over. We talked. I did interview him. They actually did print the article. But that gave us a chance to get to know each other. And then, as luck would have it, or one way or the other, our car broke down, and I wasn't able to complete that semester of school. And I told Ralph that I needed some work, and he said, well, I'm working on this project called Star World, and they're looking for someone to design helmets. And because I showed him some of my work and everything, he thought that I'd be a good candidate. So he sent me down there to where the special effects people were doing these helmets. And it was called, let me see if I can remember, ILM. And I showed my stuff to John Dykstra. They liked it. They hired me to design helmets for this project called Star World. And as I'm designing them later, I had to design the whole suit for this thing. And they were actually robots. And they changed the title of the show to Battlestar Galactica. So I ended up designing the Cylons for that show. And I did a lot of other work on that, and was able to go back to school after the following semester. Everything was fine. I'm in my final semester of school. Ralph calls me out of the blue, and he says, hi, I wonder if you could do me a favor. I go, well, sure, what's that? He says, well, I'm kind of stuck. He says, I'm working on this new Star Trek motion picture, and my little ears went, what? Or maybe they went, what? Because I'd been a Trekker forever, and it was like, they're doing a movie of Star Trek? He says, yeah, but I really can't do any more work on the project because George called me up to Northern California to do the next Star Wars movie. So I gave them your name. Is that okay? Yeah, that was okay.
Yeah.
So I went down, talked to Robert Abel, and met his art director, Richard Taylor. They looked at my artwork, and they brought me on to design for Star Trek: The Motion Picture. So how's that for a long story?
That's great.
It's good, but how did you? At what point did you know you were designing the Refit Enterprise? What was that moment?
Well, it was all part of the package. They brought me on. They said we have all of these things that are in the show that need designing. There's a space dock. There's a space office complex. There's a long range shuttle, and we need to have a new design for the Enterprise. Richard Taylor told me first day. He says, "I want you to design all of the humanoid hardware in this picture." He says that way it'll give it a visual continuity, coming off the same desk, and I thought that was great.
Okay, so how did you approach the new Enterprise design? Why did you choose to keep some things the same, but totally change other aspects of the ship? And just how much direction did you receive from Mr. Roddenberry himself?
Yes, but the long answer is, when I started designing the Enterprise, Richard Taylor asked me, basically, he says, okay, you can do the ship, but I really want to do the warp engines because I have some of these ideas that I think would make them look really great. So it's like, hell no, you're my art director. I got the whole show. No, it's like, yeah, that would be great. Go ahead and, do it. I've got plenty of other stuff to work on. We looked at what I was told was the Joe Jennings drawings of this Phase 2 Enterprise. That they were going to make it a TV show. That was canceled when Star Wars came out. So the models that they had for Phase 2 were not quite up to big screen quality. They were basically made for a TV show. So Richard wanted to update and upgrade everything, and so that's kind of where we started. But we started with the Joe Jennings drawings. A lot of people say they're Matt Jeffries drawings. I think Matt was like the head of the art department, and Joe was directly under him. I'm not sure of any of that. But we started with this drawing, and the first thing I wanted to do was take the ship up to like 2,000 feet. I wanted to make it, if it's going to be different, let's make it really different. And Richard was like, no, let's stay real close to the Joe Jennings drawings. And I said, well, let's at least even it out to 1,000 feet. He said, fine, that's good. So we did that, and I started with Joe's drawings and tried to sort of sweeten them together as much as I could. They were already pretty good. They had a nice shape in the engineering hall. But the saucer I thought was too small. So I wanted to enlarge that, give it a better feel for the overall harmony of the design. Richard approved that. And then I just went in for the details, the new photon torpedo tubes, and we changed the navigational deflector and the details around that. I added, for the first time, a reaction control system, these thrusters around the ship so that it can maneuver in space, just like the real spaceships do in NASA.
It's funny you mentioned those two details in particular, because in our notes, those are the two details I focus on, the torpedo tube and the deflector dish. I'd love you to elaborate why you thought adding that torpedo tube and revolutionarily changing the deflector dish, why those ideas, because those certainly some of the iconic pieces of the design.
When Richard finished his design of the nacelles, they had a really beautiful kind of Art Deco look, and the way the shapes sort of interlocked with each other, I thought was really wonderful. And so I was encouraged to try and pull that through the whole ship, which obviously made a lot of sense to me. The torpedo tubes, originally I think there was just a single torpedo tube in the Joe Jennings sketches, or maybe not. But at either way, they were round, and I kind of saw that as a step backward. I thought that the future would have something better than just shooting a projectile, and I wanted to kind of flatten things out to go along with that Art Deco lineage. So I came up with a shape that I thought was harmonious with the shape of the ship. And then we went through a round of designs as to whether or not those torpedo tubes should actually have doors on them. My original thinking was yes, they should, because that way it would do two things. It would show that we were less aggressive by hiding the weapons, and two, it would give us some business in opening the doors. Like you see in the World War II movies where the torpedo doors are always open. So we went through a lot of discussion about that, and I did some sketches with them closed, and then I did some sketches with just open areas with these tubes out in plain sight, and those were the ones that were chosen, mostly I think just for the detailing that they provided. I don't remember direct conversations with Gene Roddenberry, and really any details on the Enterprise itself. That's not to say they didn't happen. Gene and Robert Wise would come over to the Robert Abels Associates offices for meetings on occasion, but more likely than not, those meetings were held at Paramount, and then Richard would go over as art director and sort of sit at our side of the table. Basically, it was Paramount and Robert Abel, and that gap got wider through the process. But I never went to Paramount with Richard during those meetings, so I don't know what Gene actually had in the way of input on the Enterprise itself. The deflector dish, of course, has always been a part of the Enterprise design. Gene, the one thing Gene did say was that the Enterprise is a character, just like any of the live human stars in the picture. The Enterprise is a character, and I totally agreed with that, because that was one of the things that struck me when I watched the premiere of the original series back in the 60s. It's absolutely iconic, and so there's no reason to heavily modify that, in my opinion. So the deflector dish was there, obviously, to brush particles and bad things out of the way of a ship under warp drive. So it had to remain on the ship. But what I wanted to do was kind of, again, sleek the ship down a bit by recessing it into the engineering hall rather than having it sticking out like a radar dish, because I thought it looked cool.
What other reason is there? It does look cool.
It just helped to sleek down that front part. It still performed the same purpose. And you say it's colored blue, but it changes colors depending on how much radiation is coming out of it.
Yeah.
When it's low power, it's kind of an orange,
mm-hmm.
and then that orange glows to a brighter color and becomes blue on the perimeter. I wouldn't walk in front of it, even at the low power.
Now, one of the most obvious changes to the ship was the hull, going from the sleek, smooth hull to the now iconic Aztec design scheme. So talk us through that change in particular, and what was the process to decide this new shape and colour that ended up on the Refit hull?
Richard wanted the Enterprise to be a white color. The one that we were upgrading from, it was kind of a duck egg blue. And but Richard saw this as kind of a rebirth, of the ship being refitted in the dry dock, and absolutely agreed with that. And initially, I designed a series of pinstripes that went all over the ship. Pictures of that really don't exist. Mike Miner had some pre-release painting, had a pre-release painting of the Enterprise, and he kept updating his painting as we kept changing the ship. And probably his last update showed the pinstriping that we actually designed on the ship, and that's really about it. There's one other drawing that I did, a colored pencil drawing that I did, showing the view out the rec room windows aimed at that starboard nacelle, and that shows the pinstriping on the nacelle. So it was all planned right up to that point, right up to the point of actually finishing it. And the modelers were complaining about having to put on these decals. And so at that time, Doug Trumbull was in charge, and he says, what the hell, just leave them off. Well, there you have it.